Welcome to Insight, a collaboration between TV6 and the Quad City Times business magazine of the same name. Like the publication, we're taking an in-depth look at the local business landscape. I'm Redrick Terry.
Hi there, and I'm Matt Christensen. This morning we take a look at gun violence in Davenport and a new way the city and police are working with the community to find a solution.
TV6 and the Quad City Times present Insight, the business journal of the Quad Cities.
All right, first let's take a look at some statistics surrounding this issue. So far in Davenport this year, there have been 3 homicides, 19 non-fatal shootings with a victim, and 97 shots fired incidents. In the last 4 years, 2020 had the most homicides at 12, as well as the most shots fired at 282. Last year saw the most shootings with a victim at 44, but as you can see there, the numbers overall are starting to trend down. Today we'll look at the problems as well as the solutions. Using American Rescue Plan Act funding, the city of Davenport is implementing a group violence intervention, or GVI, strategy model to address violent crime in our community.
You know, when you tell somebody that you're going to go in front of a person that could potentially be or is a violent individual, there would be a little bit of hesitation to just the average person. For me, I have no fear about going to speak to somebody, because this could be, like, again, my nephew, my son, you know what I mean? So when I'm going in, we went out and we talked to some of these people, and it's interesting because initially there's a lot of hesitation, especially when you show up at somebody's door at 8 o'clock in the morning with the police. That's that's usually a challenging aspect, but as the police starts to talk, and then the community voice comes in, and then we say, hey, you know what, we have somebody here that can connect you to services. You need a job, we can get you a job. You need something, anything that we can help you get, we can do that. And that's the approach part of it, where I think it's just different than things that have been done before.
But when we begin to talk, people understand that we're here to build a relationship with you, to offer you a hand up and not a handout, because we know that there's struggles in the community. We know that there's violence in the community. But what are we going to do to build a relationship with you, to build that trust, and then to give you that hand up and walk with you along your journey in preventing that violence in the community together, and not trying to navigate that system by yourself.
We want to keep you safe, alive, and out of prison. You know what I mean? And that right there alone is a statement that holds a lot of weight when you're talking to somebody that's either on their way to prison or on their way to death. You know, so it's scary when you think about it, but I think that approach is just telling them that we care about you, we care about what's happening with you, and we don't want to see you doing the things that you're doing. We want to try to keep you safe, alive, and out of prison.
Still to come, we're going to talk with city and police leaders about this problem and how they're working together to solve it. That's all coming up next on Insight. Welcome back to Insight. Today we are talking about gun violence in Davenport and a new program working to curb some of that violence. We are joined now by Davenport's Assistant Police Chief Major Jeff Blado and Sarah Ott, Chief Strategy Officer for the City of Davenport. Thank you both for being here with us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So let's start by introducing the problem. What are some of the problems being seen in the city from both of your perspectives? We'll start with you, Major Blado.
Yeah, so, you know, our community has been impacted, kind of like a lot of communities throughout the country, on violent crime. We saw a significant surge in gun violence, you know, actually started around 2017, but very defined 2019 to 2020, where we saw significant increases in our homicides, in our shots fired calls, in our non-fatal shooting. So as a community and as a law enforcement agency, we look at our officers out there on the street, and they're working tirelessly to address the crime, you know, and we seem to be caught up somewhat in a cycle of violence to where, you know, all the fantastic work that our officers are doing, sometimes they, you know, it just doesn't seem like we're getting to a kind of resolve. By having that, we had our mayor initiate a violent crime task force to kind of bring our community together and look at violent crime in a different way, and how law enforcement in our community can address violent crime. You know, and our officers need our support. They are doing a lot of heavy lifting, but you know, when we are able to you know, add our community into this and add prevention methods, you know, we're going to see some more progress on this. So kind of the issues with that.
Sarah, can you talk a little bit about policy? What's the city doing?
Yeah, so You know, as the city look at public safety, we're looking at it as a continuum, right? And we have our law enforcement officers who are working on the enforcement end of that strategy, and they will continue to do that work, as Major Bladel said very well. But from a city and a community perspective, we need to look at the entire continuum, which includes prevention programming, it includes intervention with those that are most at risk for violence in our community, and pulling in all of our community partners to address that as well. So we're looking at public safety as a broad continuum, and group violence intervention is a part of that, and we're excited to share more about that with you today. But that's going to take the work of all of our community partners working together in the same direction to be successful.
Major Bladel, it kind of sounds like you've identified a point where gun violence may have started to get on the rise in Davenport. Is there a reason behind that, do you think, at this point? Has there been a reason identified?
Well, I think when you look at, nationally, again, you can look at some of the trends. COVID probably had something to do with it. We've had, just the gun issue in and of itself. A lot of what we see are pretty sporadic beefs, amongst people that maybe have some social interaction issues, so a lot of these are very sporadic. So not one thing, there's a lot of many things that probably contribute to the violent aspect that we're seeing in our community.
Where do people obtain the weapons?
Well, that's, we had a number of trends with our stolen vehicles to where we, have guns that were unsecured and in cars that were getting stolen. The laws have changed throughout the United States, and so the accessibility of guns are out there. There's just a very large quantity of guns out there.
Obviously, this is an issue that impacts everybody within the city of Davenport. So in terms of coming up with a solution, what goes into coming up with that solution that is something that will work for everybody in the city? Yeah,
so I think that when we, as Major Bladel was talking about, the mayor had his violent crime task force. And so as a lot of people in our community were talking about what are the solutions that we can look at to address violence. A lot of times we're looking at these broad macroeconomic issues, right? We need to address poverty, and we need to address housing, and we need to address food insecurity and education and after school care. And those are all really good things to focus on in their own right, but something that, in our research as we've been looking at strategies to really tackle violence in our community, something that was impressed upon me is if you want to address violence, you need to focus on those that are driving the violence. You need to focus specifically on those individuals that are at highest risk of violent victimization or offending. And so I think that as we look at the GVI strategy, that's exactly what the strategy does.
In terms of what you're hearing from the community, because I'm sure as both of you guys holding the positions that you do, you're hearing a lot from the community. What are you hearing in terms of potential concerns from people who are out there? And again, I'll pose that question to both of you.
Well, I think everybody's concerned with the violence, right? We look at the impacts that they have, right? We have very young people that were taken too early within our community, and it doesn't necessarily impact it on an individual level. It impacts it on a neighborhood level. It impacts it on a community level. And I think the biggest concern is violence is too much. One is too many. What can we do collectively to help stop violence completely? And and I think, as Sarah mentioned, when you look at this, it's not a program, it's a strategy. It's actually the communication piece between your law enforcement agency, your community, your social services within the community, standing up together, working hand in hand with that message of violence needs to stop. And then we have, the ability to work through that strategy together. But it's our community, standing together and having that message, clear message that it needs to stop. So I think with our community being involved, and we look at a number of things, and I look at an efficient policing strategy, right? If we're going to be efficient, we have to do two things. We have to be able to be trusted by our community. We have to have trust. And then the secondary factor of that is we have to have methods to prevent crime. If we're not preventing crime on the end, we're going to continuously chase or react to crime versus trying to get ahead of it. And, that's some of the things that we saw with our officers, in the amount of homicides and the amount of shootings that we're investigating. And you get exhausted when you're going through that cycle and you don't have that ability to, stop that or infuse something else. So as a strategy, you have to try something differently, and our community is the key, and our community is here and very supportive, and I think that's the message that we hope to bring today, that we are standing together and we're going to address violent crime.
I think it's important to note too, as Major Bladel was saying, like, there are no unsafe neighborhoods in Davenport, right? There are good people that want to feel safe in their homes and their communities and their neighborhoods all over. And so we need to be able to address those that are driving the violence in these neighborhoods, because everybody deserves to feel safe in their community. Everybody deserves to feel safe in their neighborhoods, deserve to let their children play in their front yard without fear of anything happening to them. And so this is a community strategy. This is what it's aimed at, to make sure that everybody feels safe in our community.
TV6 and the Quad City Times present Insight, the business journal of the Quad Cities.
And welcome to Insight, a collaboration between TV6 and the Kwqc City Times business magazine of the same name. Like the publication, we're taking an in-depth look at what's happening in and around the Quad Cities. I'm Redrick Terry. On today's show, we are discussing group violence intervention. You might remember back in July when we spoke with Davenport police and city leaders about this initiative that the city hopes will help lower rates of violent crime. So how has it done so far? Davenport's chief of police is here along with some of the many people behind this initiative to give us an update on what impact it's having on the area. That's all ahead today on Insight. Coming up on today's show.
What that got us rallied around is a different way to approach how we're policing our community, what's important to our community.
We have community members that are so passionate about this strategy, who have come right alongside law enforcement and are standing side by side with them.
It's an approach we've never seen before, but it's also something we're experiencing as community members and service providers as well.
It's very exciting to be able to flip that coin over or turn the page and then offer services and turn the message over to the community and the resources that we bring to the table.
When you come in with a police officer, it's off-putting sometimes for the individuals that's being notified, but you know, I think when the community voice speaks up, it's like, okay, you know what, we're here together.
Does it move forward a major issue in the Quad Cities affecting the whole region? Does it advance racial equity? Does it demonstrate collaboration? And that's the case with all of these things here.
All this today on Insight. Welcome back to Insight as we hear more about GVI, a new strategy aimed at community safety. And community, obviously, a critical part of this program. We've got a couple of community members involved here to talk with us about their experiences. We're also joined by Lieutenant Jason Ellerrock from the Davenport Police Department. Tila Shore and Dwayne Hodges join us once again to talk about their roles and what they've seen so far in the program. Lieutenant, I'll start with you. What have you seen so far out of this program, GVI?
Well, some of the things that I've seen is just the positive resources that we bring to the table to be able to help the individuals that we've identified being involved with gun violence. The resources that we have and are able to provide to these individuals is abundant, and it's exciting to see T and Dwayne in the room when we're speaking with these younger individuals and get the process kicked off when we're doing some of the notifications.
T and Dwayne, what have you seen so far in your experiences?
I've seen a change in first the approach with this initiative. It's an approach we've never seen before, but it's also something we're experiencing as community members and service providers as well. But we've also seen some of the people that we've been custom notifying and carrying out this initiative with responding in a positive manner, and so that's been something we've been seeing, and that's been a change.
Yeah, for me, I believe, you know, just watching those individuals, I've seen a change in almost like the narrative, you know what I mean? It's starting to change, and people are starting to know that we are here, that we're out here. And that's one of the things I think, you know, just spreading that word amongst, because word of mouth is one of the easiest tools to be able to get anything out there. And I think word of mouth has been going around about the program, and I believe in a positive way, because sometimes you can spread, oh, they're walking around with the police, you know, and that could be perceived as negative. But I believe it's starting to be very positive amongst those people that are involved, and we're especially the ones that we're custom notifying. They're really receptive. That's one of the most surprising things, because usually when you have somebody that had interaction in a negative way with police, they don't want to talk to the police. But most of them have been very respectful and shaking the hands of the police, and you know, and being really open to receiving the information that we're trying to put out there in this approach.
So, as you mentioned, the word is out that you all are out there, but there might be some questions about what exactly it is that you're doing out there. So, from each of your perspectives, what are your roles and some of the things you have to do as part of this?
Yeah, so when we do the custom notification, it can be at someone's house, it can be at in an office for the probation office, and the law enforcement message is delivered first by whoever that law enforcement member is. I've been directly involved with multiple of these, and it kind of sets the tone as to, hey, we're aware that you are involved in gun violence. We want you safe, alive, not a prison. And we're here to offer you resources. We are also here to notify you that we are definitely aware that you are involved in gun violence. That needs to stop. And if it doesn't, we're going to investigate the crimes. If there are applicable charges that would come through the investigation, then that would be the path that we would take. It's very exciting to be able to flip that coin over or turn the page and then offer services and turn the message over to the community and the resources that we bring to the table, and see that individual be able to actually like turn the light switch on, and they're here to help me. Because the initial encounter with them is with the police. Sometimes it may be negative. Their past experiences may have been poor or may have just been bad. And for us to be able to sit in the room with the community members and offer the services to provide them a positive path in the future, that's very exciting for me. It's a piece that, for me to be able to have an impact on the community and to maybe reduce the violence within the city, that's super exciting to me. And the message is delivered in such a positive way that we have had people in the past just be so grateful and thankful that we're there to offer them assistance to maybe change their life around. So very exciting for me.
Yeah, for me, as part of being the community moral voice, that's kind of what that's saying, and it really speaks in itself when you say somebody that's just a voice of the community. Coming in with the police, I mean, when you come in with a police officer, it's off-putting sometimes for the individuals that's being notified, but, you know, I think when the community voice speaks up, it's like, okay, you know what, we're here together. We're not here to say what you did or what you've done is wrong or even what you've done in your past. We're here saying we're a community member. We want to, and we resonate with this, the term, keeping you safe, alive, and out of prison. We want to see you safe. We want you to have a future. We don't want you to continue to go down the path that one of those three options are going to be the only option for you. But it's just refreshing to be able to do that and have that that opportunity, especially again going in with the police, because sometimes those interactions could be very different, because some of the individuals will like, and then the community moral voice steps in and goes, hey, it's not like that, man. We're here to help you, and we want to see you survive out here in these streets. We want you to do better with your life.
To me, it's a united front. That's how we present ourselves. We come with the same message. We want to see you safe, alive, and out of prison. But we also know that you have a need. And that's a lot of times what, as a social service provider, we get referrals. People come to us. But we are actually coming to them and saying, hey, look, we're here for this reason. We're not here to give you any consequences. Now, we know that there could be some consequences further on if the behavior continues in the future, but right now we're worried about what you need, immediate or long term, and we're getting away from that traditional social service piece, and we're actually going and meeting you where you are and providing you what you need. So as a united front, we are saying, listen, we know that exists, but we are here to offer extend a genuine offer of help, and that is our purpose for being here.
So none of you are strangers to this community, but obviously this is a different experience, not just for you all, but for everybody involved. Have you learned anything different or new about this community and the people in it that you might not have known before?
I don't believe. I mean, I believe you kind of see what you're going to get as far as the individuals that we're dealing with. We know a lot of them. You know their backgrounds and the things that they've gone through and experienced. And my thing is just the fact that they're willing to even accept help, because pride can get in the way really quickly for some people. And their pride is like, especially a lot of the individuals we talk to that have been in the system and they're transitioning back out. They want to not look like they need help. But when T steps in and says, look, we can help you buy some diapers for your child. You know, I'm not going to say the other word on camera that we say, but we tell them, hey, there's anything we need. We've boarded up windows for people whose houses were shot up. We've taken food to families whose, they got kicked out of their place because the house got shot up. And so we took food to them, saying, here's some food for you. Here's a hotel for you to be able to stay in for your family to be safe tonight. So it's so many different dynamics, and that's the part that's really sticking with me. That's like, man, these people are being really receptive to this, because some people will not accept help regardless of how you come with it. But people are really being receptive to what we're bringing and what we're offering.
I would say the needs. I would say I've learned from this experience that even though we think that there are certain needs, there's other needs that we maybe didn't recognize, or needs that have been unmet for an extended amount of time. And so here we are, and people have learned to be resilient on their own, in their own ways. And here we are really in their face pretty much saying, listen, let me help you, let me help you. And what I realized is sometimes they've never seen that before or had that opportunity before. So we're presenting them with a new opportunity that might be scary for them, but it's also, you're seeing an initiative that you've never seen before. You're seeing all three entities at your door or sitting in front of you saying, let us help you. I know we come from a background of having some disconnections with some social service, law enforcement, as well as sometimes we don't see the valued community members that exist in the community. So to have us all together and say, we're here, y'all. We want to offer you some help and some diapers is a different thing for the community, but it's also, even though we know it's hard to accept, we're still being compassionate about it. We're still following up and making sure that we're available even after we do those customs.
Yeah, I would say it's just the simple ability for people to actually change. It's up to the individual whether or not they're going to accept our resources, and it comes down to them making a decision in how they want to walk through life, whether it's looking over their shoulder because they don't want to accept what we're offering, or take the opportunity that we are providing to them as a community and be able to change their lives and their family around them in a positive way, and not have to worry from day to day what they're going to do or if they're going to be able to eat or get some diapers for the little kids. So that's been a very good thing for me to be able to see, and just it's exciting to offer up those services for people that sometimes in the past may have been let down, and for us to be able to follow through and really drive home what we're trying to do and show them that in person, day to day, if they need it, that's an exciting piece for me.
That's to mean a lot, certainly.
Yep.
Lieutenant Ellerbach, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate the
You're
time.
welcome.
T and Dwayne will stick with us, and we'll continue the conversation on GBI next on Insight.